Hello again. It's been really refreshing just to think about what it means to be the church, and to do that over a period of lockdown hopefully has been helpful to us in just reminding ourselves that being the church is about more than watching a streamed service online once a week. The fabric of the church is much more significant than that, and indeed it transcends the programs and organised meetings that we have. Ones that have been suspended and ones that are continuing on. It is about a wonderful status that we have as the people of God. And these pictures that we have in the New Testament are so helpful to us. And the one that we're in the middle of thinking about at the moment is from the church to be the family of God. So we thought about that in terms of the church as the family of God. It means we are the true family of Jesus Christ. We are children of God. And it means that Jesus is not ashamed to call us family. He takes ownership of us, which is hugely encouraging and reassuring. Well, today we're going to think a little bit less about the status of being the family of God and more of the responsibilities, because these two are essential. Try and think about family relationships. I am a dad. I have two children, and I know, and we all know, that to be a father is about much more than being a biological father. It's about much more than just passing on your genetics. It would be all well and good for me to say that I am the father of my two children, but what if I just left home and never had anything to do with them again? Would I still be able to claim I'm their father? Well, most of us would say, well, you're not really acting like a father. And so we know that when we enter into family relationships, with that comes some responsibility. And one of the things I was struck by just thinking about this theme is the number of times that the New Testament uses family language to refer to Christians or to refer to the church. Especially think of when the letters are written to the churches. Think of how often the believers in the churches are addressed as brothers or brothers and sisters. I think that it's so frequent that we easily just skip over it. And in fact, we dare to think that it's actually a technical term, just another word for Christians. And in one level, of course, it is. That is who he's talking to. It is another word for Christians. But why not just say fellow believers? Why say brothers and sisters? Because there's a depth to that language. One that I fear we've easily overlooked because we've just been so used to it. There's a depth of meaning to calling someone your brother or your sister. And so I want to take a look at one or two passages just to see how that language is used, but particularly in light of the responsibilities that come with it. So the first of those is in James chapter 2. James chapter 2, and from verse 14. What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save them? Suppose a brother or a sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, "Go in peace, keep warm and well fed," but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is it? In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. Now here, James has a huge emphasis on living out faith. Faith is not something that ever exists in isolation from a life lived in obedience to God. But here, just imagine the difference if he had written those words and replaced brothers and sisters with another Christian. So let me try that. Verse 15, suppose a Christian is without clothes and daily food, and one of you says to them, "Go in peace." It's much easier to just wash over that, but he doesn't say that. He says, suppose a brother or a sister, someone who's in your family. He's talking about the church as the family of God. And it is the significance of that language. The two just don't sit together. You can't say, oh, well, my brother has no food. My sister has no food. But I'm not going to share with them. I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm just going to say, well, all the best with that. We have failed to understand what we're saying if we refer to other Christians as brothers and sisters, but yet have no care for them. This is the depth of language that's used. It's the language of family. And we need to discipline ourselves to think about the other members of the family in those sorts of terms. So just even think about the status that we've thought of in the last few devotionals about what it means to be the family of God. We are Jesus' true family. So how many of us have been encouraged to think about that? I am part of Jesus' true family. But the discipline is to then think about everyone else in your church family. Everyone, yes, including him. He is part of Jesus' true family. We are children of God. No, they are all children of God as well. Jesus is not ashamed to call me a member of his family. And you know what? He's not ashamed to call him and her and him and her members of his family as well. What a valuable discipline that is, to remind ourselves of how precious our brothers and sisters are to Christ. And it changes our perspective on how precious they need to be to us as well. And this is how the New Testament encourages us about how we're going to get along as a church family. It should be noted that very often the Apostle Paul has to tell Christians how to get along, and the implication is they haven't been. They've been getting on each other's nerves. They've been viewing things differently from one another, and different perspectives have led to arguments, and repeatedly they have to be told how to get along, and things haven't changed. We need this. And one of the things that I want to mention is something we looked at 1 Timothy recently in the life of our church. And when we came to 1 Timothy 5, the language of family really came to the fore. And in effect, Paul tells Timothy, here's how you're going to get along in the church. Here's how you need to relate to everyone. If you're having problems with people, here's how you need to think. And he says you've got to think of each other as family. So listen to this. This is 1 Timothy 5. I'm just going to read verses 1 and 2. Do not rebuke an older man harshly, but exhort him as if he were your father. Treat younger men as brothers, older women as mothers, and younger women as sisters with absolute purity. That's the responsibility that comes from being the family of God, is that we treat each other like family. Seems obvious, but it's often very much overlooked. When we're struggling with someone, we think about them in terms of family. And this is why the application that Paul gives to the Galatian churches is one that should instinctively sink down into our hearts as God's people. Galatians 6 verse 10, Paul says, therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially to those who belong to the family of believers. And when we think about people in terms of family, that command will become much more real to us. Christian, you're part of the family of God, and so is all those other Christians round about you. Let us love one another as Christ has loved us.